Hey Ben, congrats on this. Greg Engel with Forbes. This is huge. It's a big deal, and we know obviously Phoenix is going to get in the rotation. And you got Homestead, and you kind of mentioned you touched on the requirements that you want for other tracks in the rotation. Do we expect a list sort of where we say, okay, we're going to choose the championship between these certain amount of tracks, and giving those cities an opportunity to vie for it, kind of like they do the Super Bowl now, where you can talk them into to come in because it's a huge impact on whatever city you go to. Will we see a list like that, or is it going to kind of remain quote unquote secret until the schedule's announced?
Yeah, it's a fair question and it remains to be seen. We have a group that's been working on our longer term strategy of the championship locations for quite a while now and we have discussed all sorts of variations of options and to your point, the economic impact and I think the story that we're able to tell not only at the track but a lot of the community involvement that we're able to create at Phoenix and that we're going to see at Homestead Miami Speedway is a big part of this as well. So we want to make sure, and we say this all the time as it relates to the schedule, we want to make sure we're in the right markets at the right time and we're doing it with the right partners and right stakeholders. So, we're going to be very strategic and thoughtful about this process, about the markets and tracks that we either have conversations with or potentially, asked to see proposals from. So, we'll have more to share on that, I would say, in the coming months and later this summer.
Hey Ben, thanks for the time today. We appreciate it. So you mentioned all the factors that go into hosting a championship weekend, including but not limited to the climate, the market, the product on track, the infrastructure at that racetrack. Might be addressing an elephant in the room, but Vegas has all that. It's obviously not a NASCAR owned track. What's the thought process from NASCAR's perspective in including that racetrack in the future conversations to host this championship weekend, being that it's not a NASCAR facility?
I think anything is on the table at this point, to be honest, whether it's NASCAR property or elsewhere. And I think the great part about it is we have a good relationship with Speedway Motorsports, and they have many prominent events in the playoffs, cutoff races at the Charlotte Roval and Bristol, and a handful of others. So, nothing to report today on exactly where we would be considering or where those properties might be, but I think all cards are on the table at this point.
Hey Ben, Darren Stoltzfus from West 2 in Orlando. When you're talking about the venues and what fits, obviously the Daytona International Speedway kind of fits those things too. But I hate doing two-part questions, but does Daytona qualify with the style of racing and everything like that? Or is that a no-no? And then assuming if it is a potentially championship spot, how untouchable is the Daytona 500 in its current spot, Super Bowl opening race?
I did forget to mention that, and it's a good call out. So that was another variable that we discussed is what's on the table and what's off the table for a championship location. And you know, never say never, but I think we've unanimously agreed that it needs to look and feel like what we would expect traditional NASCAR racing to look and feel like. So short tracks, intermediate tracks, mile tracks are all on the board. Super speedways, I think we all feel like right now we wouldn't consider that as a championship venue. Not that, Daytona isn't a championship caliber venue. It is for sure. It checks every single box, except that box. And I think that's a little bit of a challenge just because, there are a lot of storylines that come out of those events. And we want to make sure that when we go to Homestead Miami or Phoenix or wherever it might be in the future, that there is a lot of strategy and that a lot of our championship drivers are also, contending for the victory at the end of that race. So we've talked about that. We've talked about road courses as well. Again, never say never, but road courses are probably lower on the list as we think about championship venues. So we're really going to hone in on short tracks, and I would say mile and a halfs for now.
Awesome. And then just following up all the changes that have come to the schedule, how untouchable do you think the 500 in its current spot is as the opener to the season?
Yeah, we would like to continue to see it as our opener. I think we'll continue to have the clash prior to the 500. It's a great opportunity for us to build up some momentum and anticipation for our biggest event of the year, the Daytona 500, and the new season ahead. So we'll continue to keep it in that spot. We ran a survey a couple years ago, and it was over 95% of our fan base wants to see their first points race be the Daytona 500. So that was a statistic that was strong enough for us to say we're not even going to explore that for now. So we'll continue to have the exhibition race prior to it, and then plan to have Daytona 500 as a first points race.